Welcome to the continuing session on ethics. In this session, we are again dealing with the ethical theory of Plato, mainly his theory of cardinal virtues. We have with us Dr. Nasi, Professor and Head, Department of Philosophy, University of Kerala. Once again, I welcome ma'am to this session.
Thank you very much.
Ma'am, we have already discussed his theory of a soul, mainly the tripartite division, and we have seen what a just man or how he can perform in an ideal society. So, I think we can move on to the next part of his theory, mainly his ethical theory.
Yes, you are right. We have already done the first part, dealing with the concept of soul, the divisions of soul, and the characteristics of soul. We found that soul consists of three main characteristics: rationality, spirituality, and the appetitive element. Accordingly, Plato has designed the structure of city state or the ideal state, giving the three characteristics of soul to three classes of people, assigning the characteristics to different classes of people. He says that the ruling class is the rational group of people. There is the warrior class assigned with the virtue of spirit, and then there is the working class, the farmers and business group of people. They are assigned with the virtue of appetite. Now, moving on the discussion on virtue, on ethics, Plato comes to say that the rational part is the essence of human soul, or human soul is essentially rational. And this he concludes by from his metaphysics. Actually, he applies his metaphysics here, where he actually makes a distinction between appearance and reality, assigning no value for the appearance. It is only transitory existence. It is only temporary kind of existence, whereas all permanence, all reality is attributed to the reality, namely the absolute, the ideas or the form. Okay. And the same principle he brings here, and he takes it from there and applies it here. What he says is that objects of sense, the material phenomena around us, are mere fleeting shadows of the eternal and never changing ideas. See the distinction between appearance and reality stated here. So, the ideas are eternal, reality never changing, and they simply are copied.
They are faint and feeble copies.
Yes, imitated by the objects around us, by the temporary objects. So, this is metaphysical principle actually. This principle he brings it to the field of ethics, and he applies it here. Now, he continues to say that such objects, since they are transitory, have no absolute worth, no worth and even no absolute value. So, this is the nature of the external objects around us, which is called appearances. Now, reason, he says, reason which alone is conversant with the highest good has absolute worth. So, what we call the reason, so we have mentioned about the reason in different contexts, the characteristic of soul, highest characteristic of soul, then it is attributed to the ruling class of people. So, like that we have seen it. So, this kind of reason is the highest good, has absolute worth, like the reality of the metaphysics, the idea of the metaphysics. So, he compares reason with the absolute of his metaphysical principle. Okay. Hence, the rational part of man is the true part. And man's ideal must be to cultivate reason. So, he sets an ideal for man as an ethical philosopher. He wants to set an ideal for man to follow. So, the ideal man is a rational man. Cultivating the rational part of the soul, developing the rational part of the soul to its fullest extent. That is the duty of a man. That man is the ideal man. The immortal side of his soul. So, he refers about reason as the immortal side of a man's soul. Like reality is the immortal reality, eternal reality. So, all the others are fleeting, changing, like the world of appearance. Even the spirit, virtue of spirit is changing, virtue of the absolute appetite is changing. Okay. So, he says that this is the only part, namely rational part of the soul, which has got immortal reality or immortal nature. The body and the senses are alien to the soul. So, they are not related to, they are not having any value, they are simply alien things. They are not related to the soul at all. Indeed, the body is the prison house of the soul. So, he goes on to explain, because this is a very important point in the ethics of Plato. So, he says that the soul is the most important part because it is rational. So, rationality is the highest characteristic of soul. Now, he goes on to say that what is body? Body is a fleeting experience. It is a temporary phenomena, like the world of appearance of the metaphysics, metaphysical principle of appearance. And compared to the soul, it is not only temporary, it is not only of appearance and character, but what he says, see, the body is the prison house of the soul. Actually, the soul is imprisoned in the body. See, the body acts as a prison where the soul has been put and locked in. Okay, a fetter. So, the soul has been fettered, tied up and locked up inside the body. So, that is the function of body according to Plato. Now, what he says is deliverance from which is the final goal of spirit. So, soul, the duty, the goal of spirit is to get out of it. A deliverance, a liberation, a freedom from this fettered state, from this imprisoned state. Okay? So, the point is, the soul which is immortal and eternal, it has nothing to do with the body, but even then it has been imprisoned in the body, it is subjected to the bodily pleasures and pressures. And the duty of the soul is to get out of this imprisonment, to get liberated from this fettered state to this locked in state. So, the ultimate end of life is the release of the soul from the body, and thus the contemplation of the beautiful world of ideas. So, this is supposed to be the goal of human life. The goal of human life is to get liberated out of the fetters and shackles of body and bodily pressures. So many pressures are coming from the body, like passions, emotions, sensations, appetites. So many things are all, these are all negative impacts on the soul. So, the soul has to remove all this, free itself from all this, and what it has to do? It has to get the contemplation of the beautiful world of ideas. So, original about the soul is the world of ideas, but here in this world of appearance it has been imprisoned. So, it has to be liberated so that it can contemplate about the world of ideas. So, that is the ultimate end of a human life, the ultimate goal of a human life. And the rational part is wise and has to exercise forethought on behalf of the entire soul. So, this goal of the human soul is to be accomplished through reason. So, reason is the means, because soul is rational, it can accomplish this. Okay? It is the rational character, the soul, that helps the soul to get liberated from the shackles of the body or shackles of the worldly appearance. Hence, its essential function is to command. That is why it is said that reason has got commanding power. Whom reason rules over the other impulses of the soul, knowing what is advantageous for the whole inner economy and for each member of it. So, since the reason is of commanding status, now it can know, it has the capacity to apprehend what is good for others, what is the best thing for others. It will be comprehending in its own, because it has that commanding power over other aspects of human soul. The function, the spirited part, is to be the subject and ally of reason. So, passing from the characteristic or nature of reason. So, nature of reason is helping the soul to free itself from the shackles of body. Now, for that it can utilize what is called the commanding authority, that commanding power over the other impulses or other virtues. Now, coming to the second one, the function, the spirited part, namely the warrior class of people, that we have seen to be subject and the ally of the reason. So, it is their duty. So, in an ideal society, the warrior class of people have to support, full support to the ruling class for maintaining the welfare of the society. That was their duty. Now, here also spirit is the virtue of the warrior class. Therefore, the duty of the spirit is to give full support, to remain subjected to reason and support it fully. Spirit cannot overpower reason. Spirit has to remain subordinate to reason. It is subordinate and it has to remain like that, but it has to help it in all respects, reason to realize its goal, namely realizing the original nature of soul. Reason takes the counsel. The spirited faculty fights the battles of reason and obeys it, and gives effect to its counsels by its bravery. Therefore, an individual is brave when the spirited part holds fast through pain and pleasure. So, we can say that a brave man is a man where the virtue of spirit is in full swing, is fully active. Then only we can say that a man is a brave man. Then he speaks of another virtue called temperance.
One of the cardinal virtues.
Yes. Temperance or self-control is mastery over certain kinds of pleasures or desires. So, actually we can speak of the next lowest class of people in the ideal society, the farmers, business people, artisans and such kind of people. The virtue of temperance is attributed to them, where what is expected is total control or mastery over pleasures and desires. Okay? So, they have to master their feelings of pleasure, master their feelings of sensation. So, for that the virtue of temperance will be useful. Therefore, the virtue of temperance is attributed to the lower class of people. Now, he says that when these three inward principles are in tune, each doing its proper work, the man is just. Okay? In a single man, the soul has got these three parts. These three virtues are there. These functions are also present. Therefore, in a single man, when these three virtues are doing or fulfilling their assigned part, the part or duty assigned to them, that man is called a just man. Okay? We can define a man as a just man or a man of justice, whom the assigned duties of each part of soul has been done or accomplished fully. He is only called a just man. Now, justice is the supreme virtue, and any soul in which it dwells is incapable of any sort of wrongdoing. So, justice is an overall virtue which looks into whether the assigned virtues are performed in the proper sense or not. Whether reason is functioning properly, whether spirit is functioning properly, or whether appetite is functioning properly, and if all these things are virtues are functioning properly, that is called justice. So, justice is an overall virtue covering the other three: reason, spirit and appetite. Okay. So, we come to what is called the ethical ideal in Plato. So, with this idea of reason as the primary characteristic of soul and helping the soul or enabling the soul to realize its original character, namely identification of the world of ideas or entering into the world of ideas. So, we can speak of what is called the ethical ideal for man. So, Plato comes to that point.
So, by using these metaphysical principles, he is trying to explain the concept of ethics.
Yes, concept of ethics in the sense the concept of soul also.
Okay.
Now, he says that a life of reason or a life of virtue is the highest good for man to attain. You lead a life of courage, you lead a life of reason, you lead a life of appetite, the so called virtues. So, a life of reason, of all these three, life of reason is the highest good. So, that is the primary importance assigned to the virtue of rationality, virtue of reason. Pleasure, although it is not an end in itself, accompanies the gratification of desire, and the more reasonable the desire, the more pleasurable its gratification. So, Plato says that matter is imperfection, a dead weight on the soul, that we have already mentioned. Body is the prison house. Okay. Matter or body is always imperfect, always temporary, always a passing reality. It belongs to the world of appearance. Therefore, it is a dead weight on the soul. It is a weight hanging over the soul, of which the soul has to remove. Soul has to free itself from that weight. To be free from this clog and to lose oneself in contemplation of beautiful ideas or to see God is the consummation devoutly to be wished by a human being. So, this weight which is hanging on the shoulders of a human being, the body, the weight of the body, the soul has to remove it, so that it can enjoy the company of the beautiful objects of the world of ideas. Actually, soul is a member of the world of ideas. So, in this world of appearance, it is in association with body. Once when it is in association with body, it has been imprisoned by the body, because the body exerts power over the soul, and soul is, it is very silent. We have already seen reason is silent, it is the weakest principle like that. So, since it does not exert itself, body exerts power over that and gets its imprisoned and hangs over the shoulders of soul just like a weight, mass of weight. So, the duty of the soul is to remove or break this imprisonment, and once when it breaks this imprisonment, it gets liberated and it enters the world of ideas as a member of it. It regains its original position. Okay. So, that is the Platonic philosophy. That is why it is said that Platonic philosophy culminates in a kind of mysticism. We can compare this idea to that of Indian concept of liberation and so on. So many studies have come on that. Okay. So, to see God is a consummation of a human being that he can wish for. To see God in the sense to enter into the world of reality. To the world, ceasing his status in the world of appearance, he has to enter as a member of like a kingdom of God. Immanuel Kant will say like that. So, according to Plato, it is a world of ideas. The soul belongs to it, but it is lost in the world. It has to regain its original status and go back to the world of ideas. So, that is the essential conclusion that we can draw from the ethics of Plato in regarding soul. Actually, Plato speaks of these cardinal virtues. Earlier we have applied it. Now, what is this cardinal virtue? He has given us a separate topic, he has discussed it. But what he says is that this virtue belongs to the soul. Therefore, when we discuss about soul, we talk about the virtues. So, as a separate topic in the Republic, in his famous book, The Republic, Plato discusses what is a cardinal virtue and what are the cardinal virtues. So, he says that we can speak of 4 virtues.
4 cardinal virtues.
Yes. The traditionally it was Plato who has formulated the and it was he who has defined what is a virtue, and he has formulated the number of virtues, and he has named it as the cardinal virtues because they are the primary virtues. Now, following these primary virtues, we can talk of many other virtues, so many thinkers have developed on it.
Okay.
But the credit goes to Plato in formulating these basic virtues, and that is why they are called cardinal virtues or primary virtues. Now, in his Republic, the book we have already mentioned. So, he has mentioned 4 virtues: wisdom, courage, temperance and justice. So, these are the 4 kinds of 4 cardinal virtues. Of course, these virtues we have already discussed, some of these we have already discussed, attributing to different parts of the soul. But he has separately enumerated them and elaborated them because of their importance, because their significance. Okay. So, the first one he speaks of is wisdom. He says there has been a great deal of discussion with Socrates, his master. So, regarding who is a wise man, what is the meaning of wisdom, how can we define it like that? There has been a lot of discussion on that, by saying that virtue is knowledge, and as to the exact nature of wisdom, which according to Republic has the supreme place in the soul of the just or righteous man. So, after a long discussion, after elaborate discussion as to what is the virtue of wisdom, what is the nature of wisdom, etc., Plato came to the conclusion that this is the supreme element of soul. This virtue of wisdom, a man of wisdom means a soul man, a man who has developed his soul. That the development of soul we have already seen. So, such a man can be called a wise man, a man who has developed his soul to its fullest extent, in the sense has liberated its soul from the shackles of the body and became eligible to be a member of the world of ideas. Such a man is a just man, I mean a wise man, wise man. So, wisdom belongs to that man. So, that is how he explains it. Now, we can go on explaining his statements. So, he says has the supreme place in the soul of the just or righteous man. The good man, the ideal man will be a wise man. That is the sum and substance of that. Then coming to the second virtue, what is called courage. Plato recognized a subordinate place of courage in the moral life. We have already discussed that along with the warrior class of people, he attributes the virtue of courage. Now, wisdom comes first in giving man its directions. Now, wisdom can be equated with rationality, reason, because that is the primary characteristic of soul. So, along with the rationality, we can put wisdom also. So, it is in a commanding position. It is that which gives directions. It is that the leader, that which leads. Okay? And courage is then needed to resist the fear of pain which drives a man away from the path in which wisdom directs him. So, once when you are directed to go in a certain path, you are allowed to, you are directed to choose a course of action. Now, there will be some obstacles for you. You will be tempted to get distracted from that path. Now, the courage, the virtue of courage will help you then. So, that is the role of courage. So, the role of courage is helping you to be steadfast, to keep the track in which wisdom has directed you to go. So, wisdom will tell you that you go in this direction, but when you try to go by that direction, you will be facing certain problems, and these problems can be tackled by using the virtue of courage. So, that is the function of courage. So, courage is a secondary virtue to wisdom, helping to accomplish the directions or the guidance given by the wisdom, the virtue of wisdom. Okay. So, courage is of two types again, active courage and passive courage. There is also a distinction between physical courage and moral courage. So, courage can be of different versions. Anyway, the essential of the virtue of courage is it acts as a helping hand to the accomplishments or to the directions of wisdom. Okay. So, it is subordinate to it, but helping it. Just like we have seen reason and spirit, the ruler class and the warrior class. So, all these are connected things. Now, coming to the third virtue of temperance, it is the virtue which offers resistance to the allurance of pleasures. Already it has been mentioned. So, you will be there is every possibility of you being distracted by different temptations of your body, like sensations or pleasures or emotions or
desires.
Feelings. Yes. So, all these are actually distractions from holding on to the right path. Now, the virtue of temperance will help you to hold on to the path just like courage. So, temperance is a little lower than that of courage. So, it is meant for the lower class of people, ordinary people. So, the function of temperance is a kind of keeping the direction, keep you on the track. Plato himself describes it in more positive terms. Temperance is supremely a virtue which gives beauty to the moral life. So, to a moral man, to keep on the track of morality, the virtue of temperance is very much needed. Okay? So, temperance is a virtue which is very useful, helpful in following the path of morality or leading a moral life. And finally, Plato speaks of the virtue of justice. So, justice, Plato himself reserves for a particular purpose. So, he says that a human being is a social being also. He is not an individual alone, he lives in the society. And there he has to deal with so many people around him. Means he has to establish social relations. Man has to have social relations. And see, there is something, there must be something to guide and control him in such a relation, such relationships. See, think of the other virtues. See, wisdom, courage and temperance are primarily virtues of an individual. It is relating to the personal life, individual life of a particular individual. It has nothing to do with social life. Okay? But justice is primarily a virtue of the society. Because it involves in the social relationships, in social life, where other people are also coming in. Other people are also have their own role to perform, and we have to be there in the midst of others. So, in such a state of affairs, some virtue must be needed. So, very calculatedly, very purposefully, Plato has introduced this virtue, the social virtue called justice. So, the first three virtues are explained by reference to one of the three parts of the soul or city. So, that we have seen, the soul has been explained compared to the city. Then one has wisdom when the part in the supreme command has an accurate apprehension of good and harm. One has courage, so that things we have already explained. Part is duly in harmony with the subordinate to the first, conforming itself to what the first part apprehends of good and harm. One has the discipline when the third part is duly subordinate to the first two and has its own way only when those two parts do permit it. Thus, three parts, the city or the soul, are used to define three virtues. Since there is no fourth part, this fourth virtue of justice has to be defined in a different way. So, he justifies why justice is defined in a different way. So, the soul has got three parts, city has got three parts, so virtues are assigned to them, so three virtues are over. Now, there is a fourth virtue, because Plato is talking about four cardinal virtues. So, how can you explain? What is the place to put it? So, he says, fourth virtue of justice has to be defined in a different way, and just about the only way left by the tripartite theories of soul and city is to define justice as that condition where each of the three parts does its own job without trespass upon the other. See, justice has to see that there is no trespassing of different parts of society or different parts of soul. Say like the appetitive soul does not encroach upon the spirit part, or the working class of people does not encroach upon the ruling class of people or the warrior class of people. So, this overall virtue, the overlooking virtue is called justice. So, justice is a virtue which is overall, I mean it is mainly meant for the social relation, keeping the social life in a very comfortable and congenial manner. So, that is the function of the virtue of justice. So, thus Plato divided the soul into rational and irrational and assigned appropriate virtues. So, it is a kind of summarizing.
Okay, ma'am. Since his theory is fully metaphysical, that is, his theory of ideas is entirely metaphysical.
Yes.
And when we attribute this theory to society, because Plato is actually doing his moulding an individual, his moulding an ethical, to be ethical, the individual should be ethical for an ethical society, but it is totally idealistic. So, how can an idealistic concept be applied in a society? Do we have again we have criticism towards this theory, because it is a full fledged one.
You are right. Plato, being an idealist philosopher, thinks of the ideal situation only. The typical example is concept of ideal state. He never wants to realize it. He wants to put it as an ideal. Now, the same comment has been applied to the concept of justice developed by Plato. Even though it is a very valuable, very meaningful concept, because it is a social concept, it is not a private, it is a public concept, a concept which guides and controls the social life of human being, very valuable in the history of human thought. But at the same time, the way in which Plato has developed it and advocated it, that has been subjected to a lot of doubts and criticisms. A lot of doubts have been raised on that, whether how can we apply it, how can we accept it like that. For example, it has been said that Plato's theory of justice is completely idealistic in character, but this is in tune with his general philosophy. He is an idealistic thinker, and therefore his concept of justice is also an idealistic one. And then it is said that there is no legal binding for that, because Plato has developed it on the basis of morality. So, legally speaking, concept of justice has no validity. That is pointed out to be one of the drawbacks of the concept of justice of Plato. Then if you go look at it again, it seems that Plato has been guided by the principle one man, one work. So, he says that ruler has one work, the farmer has got another work, no interference, no exchange of work like that. So, this it is doubtful how far
It is
this
possible.
is working or possible. Now again, it is said that it gives monopoly to the guardian class of people, monopoly of power. Because one man, one power means one class of people has been allotted one class of work and you are expected to do that work only. So therefore, it may lead to what is called a monopoly of power. So this also has been pointed out. Then the theory of communism of Plato ignores the essentials of human psychology and human nature. So from the psychological point of view, it has been pointed out that the theory of communism advocated by Plato. So Plato's idealism has been dubbed as communistic philosophy, and it ignores the human nature or human feelings are not taken into consideration, and that is visible from ruling class, this total absence of feelings and emotions and so on. Now again, it is said that Plato's theory is static, it is motionless, because it has no movement at all. It is once and for all, it has been stated. Nobody can add or distract anything from that.
Everything is fixed.
Yes, it allows that is what it allows a person a particular position in life and condemns him for his entire life. He has to be born as a farmer, he has to live as a farmer, he has to die as a farmer, for example. So that is it is a motionless principle, it has been said. Then sometimes there is a doubt has been put forward that this may cause class war. So because of this because of its lack of flexibility or lack of movement, no, thinkers in later times doubt that this may rise to or give way to what is called a class war. One class of people can revolt against other class of people. And again we can say that state but not on the development of the individual. See, always Plato by this it is a social ideal, justice is a social ideal, therefore the emphasis on society, the state. Therefore critics comment that the individual is not taken into consideration.
The individual always remains the same.
Yes, individual is given a subordinate status here. Primary status is given to the state or the society, and that is also taken as a negative point to the concept of justice. So one of the criticisms has been raised by a thinker called George Grote. Now what he says is that Plato's concept of the guardian class is very strict. So in fact, Plato has denied the possibility of a life further. What he says is, he confined the life of guardian class so much so that they cannot enjoy the life or happiness at all, because they have to be confined to their duty of a contemplative life, a life of a scholar, teaching and educating, and also working for the welfare of the society. Now they are denied of any personal life or any pleasures of life. So this point has been pointed out by George Grote when he says that Plato's theory of justice is somewhat wrong in treating the ruling class of people. So these are the major points, negative points that are raised against the concept of justice developed by Plato.
Mainly his ethical theory.
His ethical theory of justice.
Okay, ma'am. Now we can suggest some assignments from the session.
Yes, you can continue with the questions.
Firstly, write an account on cardinal virtues. Second, discuss the role of reason in the ethics of Plato. Third, what are the characteristics of rational soul? Explain. 4. Explain the nature of soul and body in Plato. And lastly, comment on the functions of different parts of soul according to Plato. Okay, ma'am. Now can you suggest some references for the students?
Yes, for further study on the topic, a student can refer any volume of encyclopedia where the philosophy of Plato in general and ethics of Plato will be discussed. Now, any volume of history of philosophy also will carry an account of Plato, his general philosophy as well as ethics. Now, any specific reading is possible from these two books. One, the book of Jadunatha Sinha, Manual of Ethics, and the book of by Professor Sanyal and Professor Malik. The name of the book is Ethics. So, these books will provide ample material for the study of the ethics of Plato in detail.
Ma'am, I thank you for your participation in this session.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching the session. We will meet again with another topic in the coming session. Till then, bye.